So I've had quite a few people here lately leaving these comments about I'm lying about AA, that I'm misrepresenting what AA really teaches, that that I don't even know anything about AA, that I've never received proper treatment for AA. I mean, for alcoholism, that I'm probably not an alcoholic, or that I'm drinking now. Those were the latest. There's been an influx of those coming in here lately. Either it's because the audience base for these videos is growing, or it's like, 2 or 3 AA trolls that I used to know, or is that piece of shit John Tuttle, although John Tuttle doesn't have literacy skills to type, so maybe, when his stupidity occasionally trolls the channel, I see it right away before I get rid of him, and, I could care less. Get the fuck over it already. You're an idiot, you're a troll, I banned you from your group that you got banned again, and, time to move on by now. But anyway, I'm not going to worry about that. But here's the interesting thing I would like to ask. What specifically am I lying about when it comes to AA? Does AA tell people that you can't decide if only you can decide if you're an alcoholic or not? But then it tells people that if they quit drinking on their own and they don't work steps and they don't go to meetings, that they're either going to drink again and die, or that they never were alcoholic to begin with. Is that a lie? Or is that never said in AA meetings? Did I misunderstand that for all those years? Or is it true? Does AA tell you that that you are selfish and self-centered, driven by 100 forms of fear, you got all these resentments, you have instincts gone awry, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, that you're born with an abundance of desires, but your desires far exceed their extended purpose, according to some dude named Bill W. That's the reason why you drink, and unless you have a moral inventory, a spiritual experience, turn your will and your life over to the care of a higher power, what they really mean is God, you'll never quit drinking, and you'll drink yourself to death. Or is that not what is that not what it says? Am I lying when I say that's what they say in those AA meetings? Or is that what the literature says plainly all throughout the literature? The part in the literature where it says you have to conform to our way of life or you sign your own death warrant in the 12 and 12. Am I lying when I say it says that? Or does it really say that? And I just don't know how to read properly because I've never had someone to properly interpret how to read it. Do you routinely hear in AA meetings when someone dies after relapsing or ODing or whatever? Do you routinely hear people saying in AA meetings, some have to die so that others can live? He never was honest. They never could get the program. They didn't know how to turn their will and their life over. They didn't know how to surrender. Do you hear that in AA meetings a lot, or am I lying? It's never said in AA meetings, anywhere, any of these meetings you've ever been to. You've never heard anybody say anything like that before. If you claim that that's the truth, then I'm going to say you're a liar, because I've been to meetings in about 5 or 6 different states. I've been in meetings over a decade, and I heard those things on a routine basis. Is it true or is it not true when AA tells you that your real purpose is to be of maximum service to God and your fellow man? Which doesn't sound like spirituality to me. It sounds like a religious commandment. Is that a lie or is that the truth? Is it right there in the big book that your real purpose is not to quit drinking? Your real purpose is to serve God. And what do they mean by serving God? They mean recruiting more people for the cult religion. It says it right there in their Working with Others chapter. Am I lying when it says that that there is only one way, and that's AA? In their literature, they'll say, the doctors know a lot, we only know a little, but then they'll tell you they know more than the doctors, and they know more about addiction than the experts. I mean, Bill W. himself in the big book says ministers and doctors are competent, you can learn much from them, but it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you are more uniquely useful to other alcoholics. I have no doubt that a man who has cured himself for the lust of alcohol has far greater power for curing alcoholism than has any doctor. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. Isn't it weird how that works? They'll tell you that we only know a little, but then they'll tell you that they know every fucking thing about everything. It's right there in the literature. I just read it. Or am I lying? It's not in the literature at all. I mean, and there's a few other things I could rattle off the top of my head while we're at it, while we're on the subject itself. It tells you that it is not a religion, that it's spiritual, that you can believe whatever you want. If you go to an AA meeting and you say, something, I ponder the mysteries of the universe. I read a lot of books from a wide-ranging tract of disciplines and philosophies. I meditate, I think about things, but this idea that I'm powerless, and I have to turn my will and my life over to something in order to be cured of my addiction, that doesn't sit well with me. I don't think that that's going to work out for me, so I'm not going to do any steps, and I'm not going to get a sponsor. I'm supposed to believe that if you said that in an AA meeting, you would be 100% accepted by all the members. You'd be routinely called on. You'd be routinely allowed to talk and sponsor people. Or would you be cold-shouldered and shunned if you did something like that? You already know what my answer is going to be. You'd be cold-shouldered and you'd be shunned. Am I lying? Or did you see that in AA meetings, you who's watching these videos? In AA meetings, have you not heard people say that it's a disease? You wouldn't treat a sick person that way, that those who have wronged us are spiritually sick. But then they go around and they gleefully say things like, some have to die so that others can live. They gleefully look around at people and say, that person hasn't relapsed yet. Or you know, am I lying when I say that? It's never said in meetings. That those kinds of things are never said in meetings, right? Nobody ever says in a meeting somebody has to die so that others can live. Nobody ever says in a meeting that the person just couldn't get honest with themselves and that's what killed them. Nobody's ever said that, right? I'm lying. I'm completely misrepresenting AA when that happens, right? Totally lying about the whole thing. That's never happened in an AA meeting anywhere that you've ever been to. In all your years of going to AA, you never saw that happen. You know, they'll tell you that. I actually saw, I'll throw this in before I keep on going. I actually saw in a group one time, a guy shared that he had seen people repeating people's fifth steps, naming their names, laughing about the people's inventories. And one of the guys that was vehemently denying that, he was saying, oh, no, I've never seen nothing like that ever happen. He was one of the people that I actually saw doing something like that. So when you tell me you never saw that happen, I'm going to call you a liar. I'm going to say you're misrepresenting AA. You're making it sound like some nice neighborhood self-help group that has no religious agendas whatsoever, that has no cult hierarchies, that has no sponsor abuse, where nobody has ever been taken advantage of, or anything like that. And of course, here's another thing that's really, really telling about that. Ask an AA member to admit that people have been taken advantage of in an AA meeting and watch how they respond. If you can get them to admit that someone was taken advantage of, they'll say, yeah, but that happens everywhere. People get taken advantage of in school. People get taken advantage of in the community center. You can get raped in a library. You can't blame AA for it. They don't ever say, yeah, there's a lot of shit that goes on in AA and it's wrong. You'll never hear them fucking say that. They'll say, well, you can't blame AA for it. AA has nothing to do with that. Which is another thing I would like to point out. If you claim to be spiritual and you claim to be humble and you claim to be all this, AA is more than happy to tell you that, well, that was because you worked the steps. That's because you read the big book. That's because you had a sponsor. That's because you did all that stuff. You get exposed in the newspaper, like one guy I knew of who beat up a little toddler and permanently gave him brain damage, and they'll tell you, well, that doesn't have nothing to do with AA. AA's got no problem. I mean, AA's got nothing to do with that. You can't blame AA for somebody like that. Well, of course not. AA only gets the credit for the good things, right? If an old-timer guru who goes around stealing from people, abusing children, taking advantage of sponsees does something, has nothing to do with AA, has nothing to do with steps, has nothing to do with any of it. That was that person's self-will doing that. It's only when they do good things that the AA program works so well. Am I lying when I say things like that go on in AA meetings? Am I making that up? Or you've never seen anything like that in any AA meeting that you've ever been to in all the years you've been going to AA? Never saw nothing like that happen. You're going to tell me that you saw it happen in your home group and a whole bunch of people stood up in the middle of the meeting and threw the guy out. Is that the standard lie you're going to tell me? Because I've heard that lie a million times over and over and over again. AA tells you that you can take what you like and leave the rest. That's what a lot of people will say when they're defending their cult religion. Well, no. You don't have to obey all the commandments in AA. You can take what you like and leave the rest. But then you go to an AA meeting and say, you know something, I didn't work a fourth step today because I'm going to take what I like and leave the rest. I'm not going to do a 9-step amendment because I don't really feel I owe anybody any apologies. In some cases, by the way, that is true. But if you said something like that, I'm just going to take what I like and leave the rest. I'm not going to do a 9th step. I'm not going to do a 5th step inventory with a sponsor. I take what you like and leave the rest. How quickly would it be before some old timer jumped in and said that you have to do it exactly like the big book says or you'll die drunk? How many times have you heard in the meeting it's a suggestion to pull a parachute when you jump out of an airplane? Just a suggestion. You know, are they not subtly telling you that you got to do the big book exactly like they tell you it's supposed to be? Are they not telling you that you got to obey the principles and conform to their fucking cult religion exactly like they lay it out? Or are they telling you you can really just take what you like and leave the rest? Nobody will judge you for that at all. I'm lying, right? Nobody ever tells anybody that you have to do it exactly like they tell you to do it via the big book or it won't work. That's never happened before. I just made that completely up, right? They never tell you about the fact that they'll say it's a program of rigorous honesty, but you have to fake it till you make it. You have to act as if. That's a lie. That never happens. They never have a contradiction anywhere in the entire program of AA. They've never told you anything that didn't add up, because it contradicted itself completely. They didn't tell you something like you can't scare an alcoholic into quitting drinking, but an alcoholic's driven by 100 forms of fear, and then tried to excuse the contradiction as saying it's a paradox, which is not a paradox, as I've explained in other videos. But I'm lying, right? Nobody's ever done anything like that in an AA meeting before, right? Never happened. Nobody's ever seen somebody stealing out of the AA basket. But if they did at the AA meeting, everybody stood up and let it hang, you know, and made a change and let it, you know, that's a bunch of bullshit. You know how many spiritual gurus I saw stealing out of baskets all over? You know how many spiritual gurus and old-timers I saw that took advantage of people? You know how many spiritual gurus and sponsors that I know of that would say things like, I need some new people to come in because I need my lawn mowed and I need my house cleaned. But you're going to tell me that's never happened at any meeting you ever went to anywhere. You've never seen anything like that happen. I'm just lying and making all of it up. You're going to say that the 13-step film, the documentary about AA, is a lie. All those women were lying about being sexually exploited by old-timer dudes who were claiming to be spiritual gurus that were just trying to be helpful to other alcoholics. All those women were just lying. Never happened at a single AA meeting anywhere in the world. Of course, another thing that AA usually does when bad things happen in a meeting, they try to hide behind the fact, it's the treatment center people, it's the treatment center people, it's the treatment center people. That is bullshit. Okay, the treatment center people aren't even running the thing. It's the little hierarchy, the controlling little hierarchy hegemony of pathetic, low-life losers that do nothing in life, that accomplish nothing in life, but just sit in meetings and dictate to other people how they got to live all day long. That's doing all the abusing. People who come in to get their sheets signed like I had to do when I was in drug court, you can go to jail for doing anything in a meeting, like talking back or interrupting or speaking out of turn. They'll call the judge and they'll have you thrown in jail on a sanction. But they'll try to hide behind that. Oh, no, it never happens among the esteemed old-timers. It's perfect, you know. And I'm lying when I say that that happens. I just made all that up. Nobody anywhere outside of myself ever saw anything like that happen, right? Nobody anywhere ever saw it happen. If you notice another thing about it, if you go to an AA meeting and you say, you know, I see this happening. I see this old-timer doing this. I see this old-timer doing that. I see this old-timer doing that. They'll tell you, well, he's been sober a long time and you have not. Or they'll tell you, oh, have you ever thought about going to other meetings? Or they'll tell you, you know, well, are you sure that that really has happened or something like that? They won't ever come out and say, yeah, you got people with 20-year medallions that do all kinds of abhorrent things in these rooms. And you got to be careful when you come in here because a lot of people are not here to help you out. Do they tell you that, or do they tell you, well, did you ever think about going to another meeting? Did you ever think about, did you talk to your sponsor about that? Are you sure that that really happened the way you're saying it happened? Because I've never seen nothing like that happen at all. AA members will never admit that their organization is full of all kinds of flaws. They'll never admit that it's full of all types of unsavory characters. They'll tell you that, well, you know, there's bad people here, but there's bad people everywhere. They don't come out and ever just say, 100%, we got bad people in here, we got predators in here, and there are people that need to be careful about who they trust in here. They'll never do that. They'll try to hide. They'll try to excuse it. They'll try to say, well, I mean, you know, we're all sick in here. We're all sick in here. I mean, I'm sorry that old-timer stole money from you, and I'm sorry that, you know, he was telling your wife all kinds of things and tried to hit on your wife. I mean, you know, but we're all alcoholics. I bet you did things like that. I bet you had never looked in your part in it. I bet it was because you didn't have an expectation. You had an expectation. An expectation is resentment. I hope you don't get drunk over it because that's just an excuse. Does that not happen? Am I the only person that's ever seen that? I'm the only guy that ever saw any behaviors like that in AA, right? It's never happened anywhere else. So I'm lying about that too. I'm lying about the fact that when someone commit suicide and you go to a meeting afterward, everybody will sit there and they'll talk about how the disease got them and how they didn't work the program and how they weren't honest and how they didn't probably do a fourth step, and then they'll repeat a bunch of ugly gossip about them, and then they'll get on a high horse and they'll say something like, this is what happens when you try to do it your way. This is what happens when you try to do it your way in AA. But they'll tell you can do whatever you like in AA because it's not a cult and it's not a religion. You can believe what you want. You can choose to do what you want. You can come to AA and drink because all it means is a desire to stop drinking. Try doing that and see what happens. Try going to a meeting and say, you know, I was a heavy drunk. I've been drinking a couple of beers a night for the past month, and now I'm down to about a beer a night, and I'm not drinking in the morning anymore, and I feel I'm making progress. Would that be tolerated, or would you be assaulted by a whole bunch of assholes saying, well, you know what the big book says, and they would tell you all kinds of horror stories about a whole bunch of people that tried to control and enjoy their drinking and how they're all dead now because Bill W. in his fucking book says that that's exactly what's going to happen to you. Am I lying? Nothing like that ever happens in AA. I just made it all up. Nobody ever saw anything like that go on in AA, right? I think I'm pretty much making my point here. I could go on into a few other things, but chime in the comments. Let me know, is everything that I just said that goes on in AA made up lie, or am I telling the truth? By the way, before I go, there is a thing called Epimenides' paradox, where if everything I say is a lie, it goes like this. If a guy who is a Cretan tells someone all Cretans are liars, then the confusing part would be this. If I just told you everything I say is a lie, then by me telling you everything I say is a lie, I just told you the truth. But by me saying I just told you the truth by saying everything I say is a lie, then that means everything I say could not be a lie. But at the same time, that proves me correct. Everything I say is a lie. Go Google Epimenides' paradox. It was done really comically in Star Trek one time. Just like them in AA that says you can tell when an alcoholic is lying. Their lips are moving, but then they expect you to believe their badass stories and expect you to believe them when they say they haven't had a drink in 25 years. Anyway, until next time.